War is a time of great conflict and, honestly, immense sadness. It is a period when nations fight against each other for many different reasons. Even in these terrible times, there are rules that every country is supposed to follow. These rules are known as the laws of war. They are a set of international agreements that try to make war less cruel. They are designed to protect people who are not fighting: ordinary citizens, doctors, aid workers. The rules also say how soldiers who have been captured should be treated. These ideas are very old, but they were written down in important documents like the Geneva Conventions, which many countries agreed to uphold. The main purpose of these rules is to protect human dignity. They exist to draw a line between what can be considered a necessary act of war and what is simply cruel and inhumane. For example, the rules state that it is wrong to attack hospitals, schools on purpose. When a country's soldiers break these important rules, their actions are called war crimes. A war crime is a serious violation of the laws of war. Every nation, including the United States, has faced moments in its history when its actions were questioned. By studying these difficult moments, we can better understand the heavy cost of war and learn how important it is to hold everyone accountable to the same standards of conduct. At the end of the 1800s, a conflict began that is not always well remembered in American history. This was the Philippine-American War, which started in 1899. After the United States helped the Philippines gain freedom from Spain, many Filipinos believed they would become an independent country. However, the United States decided to take control of the islands as a territory. This decision led to a long and very difficult war between Filipino soldiers who wanted independence and the American soldiers who were sent there. The war was fought across many islands, in jungles and in villages, and it had a terrible impact on the people of the Philippines. The American military wanted to end the Filipino resistance quickly. To do this, some commanders used very harsh tactics. One of these tactics was the creation of reconcentration camps. Filipino civilians were forced to leave their homes and move into crowded camps. Women, children, the elderly. The official reason was to separate them from the Filipino fighters, but the conditions inside these camps were often terrible. There was not enough food, clean water was scarce, sickness spread very quickly, causing many people to die from disease and starvation. These actions were a clear violation of the idea that civilians should be protected during a war. Forcing people from their homes and into camps where they suffered and died went against humane treatment. Within the larger conflict of the Philippine-American War, a particularly tragic event took place in 1906. This event is known as the Moro Crater Massacre, or the Battle of Bud Dajo. It happened on the island of Jolo, in the southern part of the Philippines. The people living in this region, known as the Moros, had a long history of resisting outside rulers. A group of about 1,000 Moro men, women, and children had gathered inside the crater of Bud Dajo, a dormant volcano. They brought their families and supplies with them, seeking refuge there because they did not want to live under American rule or pay American taxes. The American military leaders in the area saw this group as a threat. A large force of hundreds of American soldiers was sent to the mountain. They surrounded the top of the crater, trapping the families inside. The American soldiers were armed with modern rifles, cannons, and machine guns. The Moro people inside the crater were mostly armed with simple, traditional weapons like swords and spears. They had chosen the crater because it was a natural fortress, and they believed they would be safe there. But they were no match for the superior firepower of the United States military. The attack began, and the American soldiers fired down into the crater from the rim above. The cannons and machine guns were devastating. The Moro people, crowded together in the confined space of the crater, had nowhere to run and nowhere to hide from the constant barrage of fire. When the fighting was over, almost everyone inside the crater was dead. It is estimated that only about 6 people survived the massacre. In the year 1915, the United States sent its military to Haiti. The official reason was to bring stability, although Haiti was in political turmoil. American leaders also wanted to protect U.S. business interests and prevent countries like Germany from gaining influence. This began a long and difficult period for Haitian people. The U.S. would occupy Haiti for 19 years, until 1934. American forces took control of the government and the economy, reshaping Haitian society. Occupation was met with strong resistance from Haitians who rejected foreign control. Armed rebels, called Cacos, fought the U.S. Marines in a bitter guerrilla war. To defeat them, U.S. forces used harsh methods. They imposed forced labor, forcing citizens to build roads and other projects without pay. This system, the corvée, was deeply resented. It recalled French colonial forced labor before Haiti's independence. Fighting often led to violations of the laws of war. Reports described summary executions, Haitian prisoners killed without trial. Patrols sometimes shot anyone suspected as rebels, killing many civilians. The U.S. also enforced strict control, censoring the press and crushing political protest. These measures aimed to crush resistance, but they bred fear and anger, deepening opposition to the occupation. The occupation is a complex chapter in U.S. foreign relations. Studying this period reveals long-term impacts of intervention and highlights the need to respect sovereignty and citizens' rights, even amid instability. World War II was the largest and deadliest conflict in human history, and the United States played a crucial role in defeating the Axis powers in Europe. American soldiers fought with bravery and honor across the continent from the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Germany. However, even in this war, fought for a just cause, there were instances when the laws of war were broken. The immense pressure of combat and the desire for retribution sometimes led to tragic events. These moments are a difficult but necessary part of the war's history. One of the most well-documented categories involved the treatment of captured enemy soldiers. The Geneva Conventions clearly state that prisoners of war must be treated humanely and must not be harmed. Yet, there were recorded instances where American soldiers killed German prisoners after they had surrendered. For example, during the intense fighting that followed the D-Day landings in Normandy, some American units were involved in the killing of German SS prisoners. Another area of concern was the bombing of cities. As the war progressed, the Allied forces, including the United States Army Air Forces, began a campaign of strategic bombing against Germany. The goal was to destroy Germany's ability to produce weapons and to break the morale of the German people. While military targets were the primary objective, these bombing raids often resulted in the widespread destruction of entire cities and the deaths of hundreds of thousands of German civilians. The bombing of cities like Dresden in 1945, which created a massive firestorm and killed tens of thousands of people, remains a subject of intense historical debate about its military necessity and morality. The war in the Pacific against the Empire of Japan was fought with a unique and terrible ferocity. The conflict was marked by brutal fighting on remote islands and a deep animosity between the two sides. Japanese forces were known for their own horrific war crimes, cruel treatment of prisoners, and cruel treatment of civilians across Asia. American soldiers, sailors, and airmen fought bravely, but the difficult nature of the Pacific War led to actions now recognized as war crimes. One of the most common violations was the killing of Japanese soldiers trying to surrender. Many American soldiers developed a policy of taking no prisoners. This was partly due to fear. Some Japanese soldiers would pretend to surrender and then attack with hidden weapons. It was also driven by deep-seated hatred and a desire for revenge for the attack on Pearl Harbor and the Bataan Death March. As a result, some units killed enemy soldiers rather than capture them, a direct violation of the laws of war. Beyond the battlefield, the air war against Japan devastated civilians. As the war neared its end in 1945, the U.S. launched a massive firebombing campaign against Japanese cities. Using incendiary bombs, American B-29 bombers targeted over 60 cities, including Tokyo. The raids aimed to destroy Japan's industrial capacity, much of it in homes and small workshops within wooden cities. The fires created massive firestorms, burned huge city sections, and killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in a short time, far more than the later atomic bombs. The decision to use atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 is highly debated. They were dropped to force Japan's surrender and avoid a costly invasion expected to cost millions of lives on both sides. Their use caused the instant deaths of over 100,000 people, the vast majority civilians. A weapon that could not distinguish soldiers from non-combatants on such a scale raised profound moral and legal questions that continue to be debated to this day. Learning about these difficult moments in history is not about placing blame or feeling shame. It is about seeking the truth and understanding the past in its full complexity. History is not a simple story of good versus evil. It is filled with complicated people and difficult choices. By studying when the United States did not live up to its ideals, we can learn important lessons. War is a terrible thing that can push ordinary people to do terrible things. The rules of war are not just abstract ideas. They are a fragile but essential shield protecting the innocent and preserving our shared humanity. Later conflicts in American history, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf, War on Terror, have also had moments where the rules of war were broken. The My Lai massacre and Abu Ghraib abuses show these are not problems only of the distant past. Each generation must be vigilant, upholding the laws of war and holding its military accountable. Conflict pressures are always present, and the temptation to abandon principles in the name of victory is a constant danger we must guard against. Remembering the victims is crucial. Filipino civilians in camps, Moro families in the crater, Haitian farmers forced into labor, civilians killed in German and Japanese cities were all human beings. Their stories testify to the human cost of war. When we remember them, we honor their lives and acknowledge their suffering. Remembrance ensures they are not forgotten and that lessons from their deaths are not lost to history. Ultimately, studying this history aims to build a better future. Understanding past mistakes lets us work to prevent them. By remembering the whole story with triumphs and tragedies, we empower ourselves to create a more just and humane world for everyone.